have stewarded this land since time immemorial. I'd also like to thank the Seattle Public Library Foundation, the Gary and Connie Kunis Foundation, the Friends of the Seattle Public Library, all for sponsoring tonight's event. And thank you also to our media sponsor, the Seattle Times, who, I don't know if y'all noticed, but just this Sunday we had Neena in the Seattle Times in our little article. So yay, Neena. I'd also like to very much thank the Haunted Borough Books for providing book sales. Thank you so much. And we are joined tonight with a few members from our Horror Writers Association, the Seattle chapter. Our full table couldn't be here this evening, but if you have any questions for HWA, please come find myself, or Kaye, or Tamara, or Roxanne. We can all chat with you about HWA Seattle. And we're also joined tonight by Cascade Writers. Thank you so much. If you enjoyed tonight's event and would like to attend future author events, we do now have a Books and Authors newsletter. We've got a QR code listed just over at our check-in table. You can follow that, get signed up, follow all the goodies. See, we've got lots of horror stuff coming up. In particular, we actually have Becky Stratford coming in a week and a half, for Why I Love Horror, which is an amazing essay collection from some really big names in the genre, talking about their horror origin stories. Very, very neat. She's going to be interviewed by Sadie Hartman, Mother Horror, who was here earlier this year too for her new release. So that event is going to be on Thursday, November 6th here at the Central Library at 7 p.m. Just a few housekeeping notes. We do have restrooms on this floor and a water fountain. They're just outside the door in the Red Hall, primarily to the left and then straight ahead. There is a code for the bathroom. It's 206, our original phone number code for anyone who's been here long enough, 206. And it's also posted on this whiteboard in case you forget. You can also come find me and I can let you know what that code is. So yeah, that's going to be just straight ahead or out to the left. And then tonight, when everything wraps up, we do need you to take the elevators to exit down to the first floor or down to the parking garage. To avoid the stairs. You'll get lost in the closed library, which sounds cool, but there are rats. So,
oh my God.
Or are there?
Perfect horror experience.
So thank you so much for bearing with me with these few announcements. I do want to share a little bit more about all the lovely folks you see up here tonight. We have Kaye Vermulm, who is a Montana-born, Washington-based author of horror and contemporary dark fiction. He has been published in Slay House Magazine, Grendel Press, Reader Beware, True Northwest, and within numerous anthologies. Kaye currently studies under Richard Thomas and is the co-chair of the Seattle HWA. That's an updated title. I'd like to say thank you very much, Kaye, for stepping up to be our co-chair, and is the managing editor for the online zine/podcast Sinister Soup and the annual Crypticon Seattle Writing Contest anthology. He also hosts and produces two other podcasts, Beneath the Rain Shadow, which we're going to hear a lot about tonight, and Fermented Fiction. When he's not doing all of that, he enjoys hiking, climbing, surfing, and gaming with his wife and cat. That's a big bio, man. Locust listed four-time Pushcart nominee Tamara Sellman has been published in weird fiction since 1998. She co-hosts the Beneath the Rain Show podcast with author Kaye Vermulm. Their collection of regional dark tales, Rain Shadows, launched in July 2025, and that's what we're here to talk about this evening. Other books by Tamara include Cul-de-sac Stories and Intention Tremor. Tamara Guerrilla Gardens rides ferries. I want to ask about guerrilla gardening. Rides ferries in Puget Sound and makes poetry films while waiting for a cure for her MS. We are also so fortunate tonight to be joined by our moderator, Neena Viel, who is a horror writer who lives in a cabin in the Washingtonian woods with her husband and best dog on the planet. Her passion for philanthropy almost rivals her love of ghost stories. Listen to Your Sister is her debut novel, and I just heard that tonight her next novel, I'll Watch Your Baby, is coming out May 2026. Cannot begin to tell you how excited I am. So thank you so much, all of you, for being here tonight. Let's begin.
Okay.
Okay, is this on? Mic check, 1, 2, 1, 2. Well, I just want to echo Genesee. Thank y'all so much for coming out, especially it's Halloween week. So I know that every one of you made a choice to join us at the Seattle Public Library when you all could be sexy cats, like at a bar, like next to a fog machine. So thank you so much for sparing that time. So let's get right into it. I mean, the reason I put on like my least dog-haired cozy sweater and like commuted the almost 2 hours was to ask y'all, what did you do to me with this book? Okay. So as Genesee said, Beneath the Rain Shadows, a dark collection of tales from Washington State is a short story collection where they rotate who's writing what. Each story includes 3 prompts, which I'd love to hear about the creation of how y'all came up with that mystery box. But so every story is going to include a quirk of the Pacific Northwest, a Washington location, and a horror trope. And so it is horror that feels very local, very close to home, which adds to the fun of the reading experience. And when I was reading it, I'm like, I was listening to your podcast and reading it, and I'm like, I can't think of another book that has had this kind of very unconventional writing process that you're also tracking on the air. So who's responsible for this, basically, is my question.
Clay started it.
and how did he rope you into it?
Well, we've been in critique groups for a long time, a couple of years, and he pitched this idea to me and said, he was already doing podcasts. And so he was like, I was really thinking about doing this one thing because he knew I'm very similar to Clay in that I like to, I need deadlines and I need goals to write toward. Otherwise, you just kind of founder. And so it's like, well, we could do a podcast where we challenge each other to write, stories, and then you have a deadline and we generate more work, because that's all we were trying to do is just generate more work, right? Which we did. And then I guess you can really within like 2 days, I'm like, sure, why not? I mean, I'm not really excited about podcasting, but I don't care. Let's just do it anyway. So, does that sound about right?
Yeah. I was originally inspired by a project called Fiction Unboxed, which Johnny B. True and Sean Platt did in like 2012 or something. And they wrote a book live on the air. It was freaking crazy for their Patreon audience.
So glad we didn't do that.
Yeah. I'm not that much of a masochist, but I'm almost that much of a masochist. So I wanted to do like some sort of craft-centric podcast that felt different. And we also wanted to produce stories. So this was kind of a perfect 1-2 punch in that regard.
I mean, and that's the part of the podcast that I found. It really required y'all to be so vulnerable in a way that was hard for me to parse or relate to. A lot of writers, myself included, I'd rather drink toilet water than put my worst draft live on the air and open that up to everyone. But also a lot of critique circles themselves are like basically a circle of hell. It really depends so much on the folks that you're with. And I know both of y'all have a tremendous amount of experience in being in writing circles, writing groups. How did you make sure that this process, because what y'all are doing, I'll tell it to y'all straight, this could ruin a friendship, okay? That's what's going on here. So how did you make sure that this process stayed constructive and positive?
I love that question, Nina. One of the big goals for this project was to explore that early writing process, because I think a lot of writers never get past that point. So if you are a writer out there right now and you have a first draft and you haven't managed to finish it, or you have finished it and you haven't shared it with anybody, I promise you that's the most important part of the process, is like letting somebody else see it, sharing it with somebody, getting real feedback that's objective and can help you grow in the story. And so we kind of wanted to show how we do that for each other all the time. Because again, we'd been in critique groups for a couple of years by the time we started the show. So I didn't want to just like talk about craft and like preach it. I wanted to like show people that vulnerable side, right? And like, because you kind of need to see other people go through it sometimes, I think, to really grasp what it means to do a process or to create that art, right? And so that early writing process, that early critique process, you don't get a lot of opportunities to see what it truly looks like unless you get into one of those circles yourself. So we kind of just wanted to be that for anybody who stumbles into the show,
Yeah, and Clay doesn't tell you that he's also a teacher. So it's like a natural affinity to want to do this thing to show people as an example. And I used to be a developmental editor, so I also really think it's important for your work to be seen by other people before it ever leaves on its journey to publication. And I'm kind of aging myself a little bit, but my first critique group was in 1985 in college. And yeah, it can be brutal. And so part of it was just you just grow a callus, really, because not everybody knows what they're doing. But that was actually one of the reasons why we wanted to showcase you can get a critique from another person, and it can be productive. It doesn't have to be the killing floors, which is what we used to call it, the killing floor, right? You can literally get, and since then, critique groups have really sort of morphed. I mean, there's different shapes and sizes now, where the author that has the work out there has different levels of power to speak for, their own piece and whatnot. Because there are so many savage people that will just tear you apart. So, but we have a lot of trust in each other because we worked together, so it was easy for us to be vulnerable. And we're not looking right at our audience; we're just talking to each other, so it's kind of easy in podcast.
That's true. Yeah, and I'm a huge believer. The only thing you can't fix is a blank page, right? The only way you can fix that is by writing some stuff on it. But like this, you do have to get comfortable with that first draft and the whole process.
Like, you having a background as a teacher, all this makes so much more sense to me. I'm like, it's absolutely not natural to think that you should be in a position to be teaching others, and I think it takes that extra special sauce. Me personally, I'm like, it's every man for himself, all right?
Good luck
But
out there.
I'm glad y'all are better than me. But yeah, I mean, for a lot of folks, I mean, writing is a very solitary experience. I guess I'm just very curious about what does it look like psychologically on your writing process to have that timeline of producing a story each month and to have this community watching and listening while you're doing it. Did y'all hear from folks or get comments during that time and have that impact your work?
Well, we have this one guy who was always responding, and he was so good. I mean, and it was like, okay, let's keep going, especially early on. We just got used to having really crappy first drafts. And just like in a month's time, that's not a lot of time. And we didn't write every day. I don't know, I think I wrote one story in like 2 days right before the deadline. But I've also done National Novel Writing Month 4 times. And you learn how to write a crappy first draft, and you get over that perfectionism that can really make it hard to finish anything. And so I'm used to like just having notes inside my stories and making fake outlines if I need to, or I've got to write this later or whatever, and just having it really be rough. And then we because we know each other's work so much, I guess we know it's gonna get better.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say?
I would say. Yeah, there's something powerful about relinquishing control in the creative process too, which we did kind of twofold with the deadline and with the prompt. So the prompt gives you a nice jumping off point, and the deadline gives you kind of like puts you a little bit under the gun. You gotta get this thing done by a certain time. And it doesn't matter what it looks like, because honestly, the sort of beauty of the project is like, the worse the story is, the more there is to talk about. So, like, that's perfectly okay. And like Tamara said, it's just about getting through that first writing phase and learning that it's okay to produce a crappy first draft. That's the first skill I think you have to learn if you want to like write regularly, is to like let go of that. And you certainly don't have to share it with people. We did that, you don't have to do that. But you do have to learn to write it and to not care what it looks like early on. It doesn't matter.
Honestly, I do think the real writing begins with the rewriting anyway. So
Draft
revision, yeah. It's first draft is just like making the clay. That's what not this clay, but
I was made in the first draft. Nobody ever edited me.
I think we should consult with your
Since where we're
parents.
at.
Do they consider this clay your final form or not?
No, they gave up. They don't write anymore.
Yeah, I used to have clients that would just get stuck, and I was like, it doesn't matter. You just got to go mine the material, and then you get to work with it. But you can't, sculpt anything unless you got the material. So.
Okay. Well, I'd love to hear a bit about prompts. A lot of people have a very love-hate relationship with them. Some people love the direction. They love the like structural certainty of having a prompt. Some people are like, I will not be confined, So I'd love to hear, was there a prompt that you were very excited to get? Was there something where you surprised yourself, or a prompt where you're like, I'm not into this one at all, but I'm doing my best?
Do you want me to start?
Yeah, you like this one. This is your table story.
What's that?
This is your tabling story.
My tabling story. Oh, yeah. Okay, well, yeah. Most of the time we were pretty nice to each other. We gave, pretty... But then one time, Kaye gave me slasher as a trope, and not only knowing, because I'm not a really big fan of slasher, and I was like, thanks a lot, I have to write this slasher story. But also he did it out of, self-preservation, because he didn't want to have to write a slasher story. So I'm like,
That's true.
okay, fine. So I ended up, writing the story. It's my favorite story in the book, believe it or not. And I learned a lot about slasher. I have more respect for the trope now. And then I turned around, and knowing that Kaye does not like zombies, I gave him zombie stories. And
That's my favorite story in the collection, actually, that I wrote. Yeah. It was fun. It's fun to, I think the tropes that you like the least on paper, again, they're a little bit more liberating, at least for me, from a creative perspective, because for me the nature of the prompt is to get you to think differently. So the prompts that I don't like on paper are the ones I don't have predisposed feelings towards or ideas for already, basically. I got rock climbing. That was a softball that Tamara threw me. She threw me rock climbing, and I have a 3 novella series I'm writing for rock climbing horror, so I'm already in there. That one I already had an idea for, right? So doing the zombies one was great because I had no ideas for a zombie story. I had no intention of ever writing one. So I had to think of something kind of outside the box or weird or that would still feel fun to me. So I had to think of a unique way to approach a zombie story, at least as I saw it, to make that an enjoyable writing experience for me. And it did make me produce one of my favorite stories in the collection.
So this is Tiger Tiger.
Yes.
I also really liked Tiger Tiger, and it kind of led me to another. I noticed in a lot of your stories, Kaye, you play a lot with nonlinear storytelling. You play a lot with structure. You have blog posts, you have therapy sessions. You have all of these other ways sort of to explore storytelling. What do you think makes epistolary horror just so immersive from the reader's perspective and so just kind of addictive?
That's a really good question. I'm not sure what it is. I think there's a level of it that helps us suspend our own disbelief. I think when you write in epistolary fashion, it's written as if this is something that was factually experienced by the character. And it also gives you sort of that same third degree of removal that I think stories that are trying to be immersive sometimes create on accident. That's why we don't want to write with filtering language, right? She saw the storm roll in. It's just say the storm rolled in. We'll know she saw it because we're with her in this story, right? Epistolary embraces the fact that this is a story, but then it kind of doubles down on, but it really happened, kind of thing. And so you can almost do that based on a true story, but not really thing that Paranormal Activity does. That I think is immersive in a weird way, right? Immersive in a sort of removed way, because you get that found footage vibe or that found notes vibe or whatever. So yeah, I think maybe that's what it is for me. I don't know. I like that journalistic aspect of it too, just from writing that as well.
And Tamara, you played with this as well in the opening story, Nurse Log.
Yeah.
And there's a found footage element to that was included in a really interesting way.
Well, that was funny because one of those prompts was a softball for me because it was the Olympic National Park or whatever, and that's my backyard. I live in Kingston, so that's easy enough to do. The found footage on the page, way harder. That was really hard. It was the very first story I wrote, and it was oh my gosh, what have I gotten myself into? Because how do you capture that when you don't have media? You have to make up your own media. And so to me, the obvious media was the text. There's a text stream between the two characters, but there's also another element of footage that is trail cam footage, and there are alarms and things, and that introduces in a weird way a third character you don't know about until sometime into the story. And then that was really fun to kind of make up. I had to go and you have to do weird research, when you're writing. I had to go and look at trail cam security and those using AI and playing with the idea of mycelial networks and everything. So that was a rabbit hole. And we found ourselves in a lot of fun little rabbit holes, and we tried to talk about those in the podcast, things we had to research to figure out. So, yeah.
Well, also in Nurse Log, so one of your primary characters, Jen, she has MS, and you've also talked really publicly about your experiences with that. I guess I'd really love to hear, what do you think makes representation work really well in fiction? Because your work here really was a cut above. It wasn't like an addition to the character or to like the plot line. It was really the driving force of their motivation for what they were trying to do.
It's that right there. It can't just be like, oh, we're gonna have these things happen, and by the way, and just slap a label on somebody. That's just like, nobody cares, because people with disabilities are people first, I love #own voices. I mean, you really should be writing from our experience as much as possible, and to share how we are really not any different than anybody else. Because people who are disabled have chronic illness are often, shoved into the corner or whatever. And so I was just like, no, I'm just gonna make her this whole thing. And they're looking, just the premise is that they're looking for this magic wild grown cannabis that she thinks will help her with her pain. She's gone through all the other pain medications, and this is a real life thing with people with MS or other chronic illnesses. There's just not enough options for pain management. And so they're best friends, and they go out in the woods to go find it, and the rest you'll have to read about.
Well, I just really appreciated that story. So those of you who know me know that I've fallen in like 3 holes, and I got surgery once. So this is my first time having something close to a mobility issue, and it really impacts so many things. And so the way that Jen was experiencing the natural world, it's something that it's easy to make fun of in film. You're like, look at that sorority girl, she ain't got no cardio, she can't escape the killer. Look at her, she fell again. I'm like, yep, that would be hole number 4. That's hole number 5.
Oh yeah, the whole joke of, if you're gonna be chased by zombies, make sure that, you're in better shape than your friend, because you can just outrun, and the zombie will get them instead. Right?
And again, Tamara, you have such a beautiful, deft hand when it comes to natural writing. And Kaye, I really felt your touch in terms of personal dynamics. I found myself thinking a long time about the very complicated relationships at the heart of your stories. You have various mothers and children and siblings, and everything is just so, that interpersonal dynamic also added an extra dimension to the horror. Please just tell me what you were thinking when you were writing Fault Line.
That is a complicated question. Fault Line is definitely one of those stories where I'm processing a lot of real things on the page. So I know a lot of people with complicated relationship dynamics. I have had some very complicated relationship dynamics. And I think that exploring those through fiction is one of the healthiest ways to do it, exploring it through story. I think it's a way that makes it more relatable for people to approach. And I do think there's a lot of stigmatized relational stuff that it's hard to put it on the page. It's hard to have a conversation about it. People either glorify it or they completely don't understand it and demonize it, and it's hard to find an in-between. Mm-hmm. So if you haven't read the book yet, Fault Line is about a sin eater and a guy who ends up dating a sin eater. And the sin eater kind of has to have lots of relationships with lots of people. So it's sort of a commentary on polyamory. But I'm trying to tell it from the perspective of somebody who's really trying to adapt to it, but hasn't been raised with those values, i.e. myself. So it's a very personal story. But it's one I'm pretty proud of, pretty happy with. And then making it horror is also a great place to just crank up all the hardcore elements of everything and explore that darker side of those dynamics while still having a good place to process it and express your own opinions and thoughts on that. Does that answer your question?
It does. Tamara, did you know that he was spitting hot fire in the first draft process, or was this also a surprise to you?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because we know, when you're in a critique group with other creative people, when you spend enough time, you get to know each other more than, we're not just there. We're talking about all the things in life. And so, I knew.
Yeah.
Well, both of you sort of write about, it's not listed as a trope, but to me I consider it kind of a classic horror trope. You both have written many characters where they are transgressing, and that really is what kicks off the horror. What do you think makes transgressions so irresistible for the characters to do, and so irresistible for readers to keep reading about?
Well, I think we are in a time with our narrative arts, whether they're films or TV or books or whatever, games now, where we've just seen and done the same things over and over again. We've all heard the story of, we're all talking about, oh, not another superhero movie or whatever, People want to be shaken up a little bit. They want to, one of my stories really kind of follows a straight line and then it takes a far left turn, a hard left turn. And to me, that's a transgression itself, just like totally subverting the reader's expectation. And I think that's the kind of stuff I want to read. I want to blow up tropes a little bit. I want to take the things that everyone expects and is familiar with and defamiliarize them, if you will. I want them to be fresh and new. So that's kind of why I do it.
I think a lot of my favorite horror anyway, I was going to say the best horror, but I will say my favorite horror, happens as a result of the characters being forced into drastic change, or basically having no option but that. Like, I think there's a lot of good stories out there that those times of change and times of isolation are kind of like the two scariest times, in my opinion, for like humans to go through. Well, anything that's going to cut you off from either the systems that you're comfortable with and that have protected you, whether those be family, societal, whatever, or the circumstances like that you envision for yourself, whatever your goals are, whatever your hopes and dreams are. And whenever those things are kind of taken away or stifled or you're cut off from them, it's really scary to like re-envision what your life looks like, right? Yeah. It's like after a really tough breakup or something, and all of a sudden you've been with somebody for 10 years or whatever, and all of a sudden, oh, this person is no longer in my life. Like, I don't have anybody to like go to the dinner with every Friday night or whatever, and it can change your entire existence in the course of like snap of a finger. And I think a lot of horror stories kind of start in that transgressive place. And then somebody has to change. They have to find who they really are. They have to find what they really need rather than just what they want or what they thought they needed. And I think not only horror, a lot of good stories are built around those kind of premises and concepts, but horror especially thrives on that like that transgressive period of a person's life, I think.
Was there a particular character in your short story collection that you think handled the transgression the best?
Ooh, I don't know, they all had a lot of
Gwen.
struggles. Oh, Gwen, yeah. I'd have to think about it for a minute. Yes, I think in my story, Meow Meow, it's not what you think. He has a tiger story, I have a Meow Meow story. Nothing alike about anything in between these two stories.
They are not alike.
They are not alike in any way.
Co-sign that.
Meow Meow actually starts out in the underground tour here in Seattle.
I love that detail.
But that, oh, wow. I was proud of her because she was really trying. I don't want to spoil it for you, but the main character is dealing with a family curse, and there's a weapon involved, let's just say. And she's just trying to get through the timeline of the curse because it's about to end if she could just get to those last days. And then something happens, of course, and now she has to deal with it. And she tries to do all the right things before she has to do maybe the not right thing. But it's not exactly what you think at all, I don't think so. I was proud of her. She was very clever in a really tight situation.
Gwen might have been not accurate, actually, since she does kind of cause a lot of trouble at the end. Maybe my character in Momnesia, who's like really trying to do the right thing, do her best, and work through things. She's doing the therapy thing. And she's contemplating, I assume some of you have not read the collection, if not all of you. So In Momnesia, this is an entire alien abduction story written through a therapy exercise. So it's a very short story, but she's just kind of professing what's going on. She thinks she's been abducted by aliens essentially, and is contemplating going back out there and trying to get abducted again because she's like, what could I learn? What could I experience? So probably her, because she's embracing the transgression rather than denying it or fighting against it. I think that's usually the wrong move.
Lord, I was worried about her. I was worried about her relationship. I was like, maybe we should call a therapist. We shouldn't just be writing together. The situation we're in right now, this is like an emergency care situation.
Yeah.
Well, one of the many things that makes your short story collection feel just so accessible and so special is that it is so rooted in the Pacific Northwest. And, it adds like that extra thrill when you're like, I know where that is. I was rereading your short story on the ferry this afternoon, and I'm like, hey, I'm reading it on a boat. Why did I do that to myself?
Yeah, don't read that one on the boat, don't.
It was a mistake. Mistakes were definitely made for sure. But why do you think the Pacific Northwest is just such a great breeding ground for horror?
I have a whole long list. Where did I put it? Here it is. All the reasons why. And I have memory issues, so I have to write things down sometimes. Okay, let's go. We do a lot of camping out here. And the woods are really dark and scary. So that's an obvious one. Yeah, the environment and the climate. Right now, the weather right now is about as gothic as I'll get out. And we just had gale force winds and a atmospheric river and all that last weekend. So the local history is, I think, is what shapes any kind of, regional Gothic. I mean, the Southern Gothic has its regional history to shape what that is. New England Gothic, the same thing. Well, we have our own history, and it has to do with, working with the indigenous, or not working with the indigenous people. It's with Prohibition. We have a big history with the Russians coming in through the borders in the north, and all kinds of sketchy things happening there. Shanghai's happening on boats in these port towns. Port towns in general are just haunted. A lot of crazy things happening. People come to hide in the Northwest. I mean, it's about as far as you can get. Washington State, as far as you can get unless you really want to do what's his name, Chris Chandler's thing and go to Alaska.
Yeah.
I mean, this is about as close as you're going to get. We have more serial killers here. We have lots of our own cryptids. We are the city. Seattle is the city with the highest seasonal affective disorder for all the climate reasons. But I've read a lot of writing from pioneers who came here who had terrible depression because they were trying to just knock down the trees were so thick there was never any light even in the depth of summer. So seasonal affective disorder could actually happen year round here. And then there's these intersections of the really old and the really new. So you've got, high tech meets indigenous culture. You've got, all kinds of historical things. Let me see here. .com, boom and bust, queer identity, class conflict, climate change. These are all modern things that can shape our anxieties, and that's what we're writing about when we're writing horror, right? We're writing about collective and individual anxiety. So there you go. That's my list.
That's a killer list. I'm just going to try to restrain on my follow-up questions. Clay, what do you think?
I agree. That's a great list. I guess the only thing I would add is just diversity in Washington, not only culturally but also geographically. You can write a story in the desert, you can write a story in the mountains, on the ocean, you can write a story in the Sound, you could write a story on some weird-ass isolated island. We have everything out here. We have jungles and deserts and everything in between. Farms and cities, and a city like Seattle is crazy, right? That's a city full of history that's literally built on 2 burnt down versions of itself. So there's just ghosts piled on top of each other in this city, You can dig into any era of it. And it's your classic shanty port town too. That's what Seattle comes from. Is everybody heading north for the gold rush. All the pop-up commercialism, and there's just so much cultural identity in Washington, and then you can go across the mountains and you've got the east side of Washington, which has tons of different varieties of cultural blending and people and environments. So I think for like a collection like this, where we're trying to have a variety of stories that represents lots of different things, Washington's a perfect state. Couldn't be better.
I mean,
We love it here.
I was gonna say, from the long list of terrifying things, I don't know if I'd say perfect. I don't know if that's the right word I would choose, considering the lengthy list of complaints. So I was surprised to see, there was a Seattle Times article last week, and it was like the top 7 most haunted places around here. And where I live, Whidbey Island, there was a park on that list. And I'm like, I wish I had known, maybe we would have made some different choices. If I don't want to move to the scariest place necessarily. I'm wondering, did you find anything surprising as y'all were scouting out for locations to be the prompts and the stories? Were there things you would have liked to include but didn't? Or just did you learn any interesting fun facts around Washington as you were poking around?
Well, Meow Meow is a good example. That was the Bill Spidell Underground Tour, and I've actually done it several times. And you guys, if you haven't done it, even if you're local, you should take it. It's a really fun time. The docents or whatever, the curators that walk you through there, they're amazing. They're great storytellers. And there's a lot of spooky stuff going on down there. So I already knew that. So when he gave that to me, I was like, dude, that another softball, because I'm like, I'm in. I love it down there. But I also, I go up to Port Townsend a lot, and there's a story set in Port Townsend, and specifically using the cistern, which is up in the barracks, or not the barracks, but the artillery hill. And I'm not sure that that's haunted, but it may as well be. I know people have done tours and stuff, but there's so many haunted places inside Port Townsend. So, but I only live about 10 minutes away from the Walker Ames Mansion in Port Gamble, which is the most haunted house in the state of Washington. I highly recommend that tour too. And the spooky haunted Port Townsend tour is also really good. So, I don't know that I had so many outdoors locations, but I do know that there are ghosts down in the Mount St. Helens, Mount Adams area. I used to live down in Vancouver, Washington, and we used to go camping up there all the time, and there's a place called Indian Heaven, and there are definitely ghost stories of Indians on horseback on this racetrack down there, because they have this big racetrack. And then, of course, there's Sasquatch, of course. And then I lived down there during Mount St. Helens, and there's all kinds of Spirit Lake, stories, so I can think of many more that we can challenge in the next season.
Oh yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, I guess that I learned 2 of my favorite fun facts is what I will tell you. When I was doing Gova, the seal, the Selkie one, that takes place in Ilwaco, I learned about Ilwaco existing as a place in general. And I didn't know that place existed. I actually drew very heavily on my time living in CQ, Washington, which is out on the tip of the peninsula. But from my research, it sounds like it's a relatively similar town, kind of like booms during fishing season and then barely exists outside of fishing season. CQ is like that, like there's 75 permanent residents in that town, but during fishing season, there are 5,000 people, so it's crazy. Yeah. And it's all campers and people in the hotel, and I lived there for about 2 years, so it was weird, just like 5,000 people show up, and you're like, people are here now, and they're all like fishermen. But so I kind of drew on that experience, but I learned a lot about Ilwaco and the mouth of the Columbia River and how that is the graveyard of the Pacific, where a whole bunch of ships have wrecked, and that's just like a famous place for shipwrecks because of the shallow reefs and the rock formations that kind of go under during high winter tides. So I learned a lot of cool stuff like that. Very dangerous place to sail. So if you're a sailor, avoid the mouth of the Columbia River. That is what I learned. I also learned that the reason Port Townsend has so many historical buildings is because it was trying to be Seattle, and I didn't actually know that. But it was essentially like there was an arms race, for lack of a better term, for Tacoma, Seattle, and Port Townsend to be like the primary port city of PNW. And Port Townsend, they threw in all their chips. Unfortunately, they did not win. But now we have a full
100% of the shots you don't take.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. And sometimes you still don't end up being Wayne Gretzky. They did not. But Port Townsend is now an awesome art community with lots of cool buildings, so they got that going for them.
Yeah, I think Port Townsend can stay Port Townsend for sure.
Totally. I love Port Townsend. Yes.
Well, since y'all dropped this idea already, I feel like it's all right to ask. I did hear that there's maybe a Beneath the Rain Shadow Season 2 in the works. What is that going to look like?
Well, we're going to add 2 more authors to our lineup so that we're not doing all the writing. But also because we really want to celebrate, and we found these 2, we didn't find them, we know these 2 great writers, Gordon B. White, maybe you know of him, he's a great short fiction, short story writer, and then M. Lee, also a great short story writer, and just great people in general, and I think they'll really finally represent the state of Washington in whatever, and I know they're up for the task of going with the tropes. It'll be a little bit harder maybe in some ways because we're all going to take on one of the tropes rather than providing all 3, I mean not tropes, but prompts, so that it'll truly be a random experience. So say M. Lee's going to be the next author to write the thing, then Clay's going to give her a horror trope, I'm going to give her a location, Gordon will give her the quirk, and so it'll really, it's going to be truly, a mixed bag that a mystery basket, if you will. And that's actually, it was Clay's idea to start the podcast, and I was the one that pitched the whole, chopped mystery basket. Well, let's just throw all these things in there that don't go together and just make ourselves write these stories. So it's really going to be truly a mystery basket this time around.
It's going to be like mussels, Burien, more socks and sandals.
And maybe Sasquatch. We kind of said, we're not doing Sasquatch the first year just because that's like, duh, it's like so obvious. But I don't know.
I want to make Gordon do Sasquatch.
Oh, Gordon,
I also co-signed this idea while I was reading
Yeah.
your collection, which is wonderful and versatile and perfect and beautiful and amazing. And I was waiting for Bigfoot. I was like, he about to be here. That is such a classic, Pacific Northwestern experience. So, well, as y'all talk about moving forward from this short story collection, I'd love to know a little bit about how do you think that this experience of working collaboratively has impacted you individually as a writer, and how will that impact, because you also have individual projects on deck that you'll be continuing to work on as well.
You want to go?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, but it's been really helpful in building a better writing process for myself, helping myself learn to take critique and apply it in a meaningful manner in a faster pace. Because when I'm writing something longer or I have less of a strict deadline, I definitely meander a lot more. So this has been a very helpful project for helping me stay on task and make meaningful progress, like at a steadier, more consistent clip. I feel like it's just made me a little more professional, and I don't think I would have developed that on my own necessarily. It's been really helpful to have Tamara's help with that. She has a lot more experience in the industry, a lot more knowledge, and so it's been very helpful for me personally to sort of learn under her in a sort of like co-author role, but also feels like tutelage in a lot of ways. So I've learned a lot from you in the course of this project. It's made me a way better writer. So I would say that.
And I would say I learned a lot more about horror from Clay, because I started out really as a literary writer. So, and interestingly, the thing that I take away is that I've always been someone who just writes, and I don't really have outlines, and I don't do all that formal stuff. I just sit down and write. But the story that I think I enjoyed the most, although it was also the hardest story I think for me to write, was The Scar. And that started out as what I thought was going to be funny. And what I did is I went online and I downloaded the 9 plot points for a Hallmark film or movie, because they will just tell you, we have formula, this is what we do, and if you want to write for us, this is what you got to do. And I thought, I could write a really funny, it was the slasher story. And I thought, it'll be Hallmark, but I'll call it Hellmark. I thought that would be really funny. And then it ended up not being funny at all. But I learned a lot about that structure in a way that it actually made it easier for me. So when I did have to really overhaul a big chunk of it for a lot of reasons, it allowed me to understand the trope better so that I could do that subversion I was talking about, taking it in another direction and like, see, I thought you thought as a reader you were going to get this and I'm going to give you this instead, and it's still going to be satisfying, and it still had, to me, a kind of a literary ending. So I do like the prompts, and I do like the framework, and I do like the structure if it's imposed, because it helps you like clarify what you want to do. So I learned a lot from that experience.
Yeah, and it wasn't just us too. Like, we collaborated with a lot of people. We had an awesome team of beta readers. Roxanne was one of them. Shout out to Roxanne, she's awesome. But lots of people like Roxanne. We had 5 or 6 other people read this too before we finished it up, because you get to a certain point where your eyes where your eyes are just like bleeding when you look at your own words and you just hate everything.
It's all trash.
Yeah, it's all trash. Throw it all out. And at those times, like, feedback you have already gotten, or feedback that is getting like reciprocated sometimes in multiple critique sessions, could start to get more discouraging. So then it's nice to reach out to and collaborate with other people. So that collaboration is crucial to developing a good creative story, I think. You have to have people at every level of the creative process in some capacity. You can't do it alone. Writing's lonely enough, but like once you start editing and you're polishing stuff, it's good to have a little help. So thank you to everybody who's done that along the way.
Well, and to Clay's credit, he also works in filmmaking, and filmmaking is nothing if not a collaborative process. So he understands that, and so it was really easy for me to be able to work with him because, I mean, we were both on the same page all the time and just totally understood that this was going to be a group project. And so the egos kind of, I don't really ever think we dealt with any ego issues, which can happen, right? Oh, I'm so good or whatever. No, it was just about making the best stories we could make, really, so.
Yeah, and that's tricky, right? Like, that's picking people for season 2. It's like, we're like, we got to pick the right people. They got to be able to be on the podcast. They got to be able to write the stories on time, and we got to all kind of get along. So there's like lots of layers to collaboration too, which is kind of why I said every stage of the process. Like, some people are going to be really good beta readers, but maybe you don't want to be your critique partners, and some people are really awesome interviewers.
Well, I'm excited for a riveting season 2. More chefs in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Regardless of how it goes for you, it's going to be super entertaining for me personally. So let's turn it over to on that super poignant note. Just let me slide in this really, really slick transition. Okay, I'm going to do it super subtly. I think I can do it because, so Clay, if the story that you wrote that was the most sticky in my mind was Fault Line, the story that Tamara wrote that I thought about long after the final page was Ghosting, which we will not do to this audience tonight. But I will turn it back over to Genesee.
Genesee. Ghosting was my fastest written story. I wrote that one really fast, like in a day, and it was like I hardly had to do
the body ornamentation, just all the elements, just love it.
I'm gonna borrow your mic real quick. I got a question. Before we transition into little dance there, thank you. Before we transition into signing, which we're gonna do, and we've got our book sales over by Haunted Burrow Books, so you're more than welcome to pick up some books from tonight's authors. I want to know which of your stories you want to go back into and play around with some more, if you could, if you are going to.
Let's see. What do you think?
I would play around with Colors of the Sea more because I think it could be a bigger story. That story is one that is set on the Washington State ferries, and it's sort of set in a demonic post-apocalypse with a bunch of crazy demon creatures. So I feel like I have a big like dark fantasy world there that I can play in. I have a bigger idea for what the world looks like just naturally. Most of the stories in this collection for me are pretty self-contained, but that one to me feels like I could write a whole ass novel in this story. So like that one for me.
I think, I think I could probably still do more work on Meow Meow. That one was just really, it was rough because it was so long. I mean, it was really chunky, and we were both like, oh no, it's another 6,000 word story. Oh no, you kind of want to keep them shorter than that. And I still feel like I'm not 100% happy with that one, although I think it resolves itself. But there's some science in there too that I'm just a little bit, I wish I'd probably tinker with that one. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. All three of you, thank you so much. Everybody.
Thank you.
All right, and just a reminder, we do have Cascade writers in the back that are available to chat with y'all. We've got Haunted Borough Books, selling books, and our authors are going to be over at this table here to your right, my left, signing for the next 20 minutes or so. Thank you so much.
Thanks for supporting local writers.
Thank you all for coming out.
Question about Meow Meow.